Hey everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Wrench. My name is Jay Goninen and I am your host. Today we've got a special guest, Lew Olivier. Lew works as the Director of Outreach for the Minnesota State Transportation Center of Excellence, where he partners with schools and the industry to help shape the future of the technician workforce. We're going to dig into Lew's background, what he's seeing in technician training, and the evolution of technicians as a whole, and really how shops can use this to be able to maybe grow their workforce in a little different way. So, Lew, thanks for joining us. How are you?
Phenomenal. Thank you so much for having me on, Jay. I really appreciate the time and the platform. And I just want to kind of give you guys props as Beyond the Wrench, WrenchWay, School Connect, the amazing things you guys are doing across our industry and our education system too. So I just want to kind of start off with that side of things. I'm very excited to be part of this conversation, and thanks for having me.
And right back at you guys, right? You're doing so much good for the state of Minnesota, and we'll dive into all of that as we go through this podcast. One thing that, as we were kind of kicking things off before we hit record, that I thought was kind of funny was we dissected your last name a little bit, right? Or your whole name, your entire name, because it's a unique name, and I wanted to make sure that I, as I do with all guests, make sure I have the last name right. And I clarified Olivier, and then you kind of dove into the rest of the name. There's a lot going on there.
Yeah, I'm a little kind of abstract, a little off the beaten path a little bit when it comes to a lot of people see my name and it's a little intimidated by it. I've experienced to somebody after they've known me for half a year or so, and they come up to me and say, like, I saw your name the first time, Llewellyn, and all the L's really intimidated me, and so I didn't talk to you for the longest time. And so yeah, I'm a little bit of a mutt when it comes to things. I got a French last name, Olivier. I'm originally from South Africa, so I got a little bit of the accent going on there too. And then my mom gifted me the Welsh name of Llewellyn. So yeah, we're navigating it. We're figuring it out along the way. So Lew has been a wonderful way of just kind of kicking off and making people feel a little bit more comfortable for sure.
Well, tell me a little bit about your upbringing, because that is definitely unique compared to most guests that we have on. Not growing up here, what was it like?
Yeah, well, what's normal for me is not normal for other people, so everybody's experience is a little different. But yeah, having grown up, so I was born and raised in South Africa. I moved to the United States at the age of 11.
Wow.
My dad is a computer programmer, so it's all about the Y2K back in, everybody, older generations remember the big scare about everything's gonna crash, and so that gave us ability to move to the United States, and so that kind of gave us another opportunity. As far as my background, technically, I'm definitely from the automotive side of things. I've been a technician and in the industry for a long time, but even from a young upbringing, I was always very mechanically inclined. I was very good thinking about how things work together. My parents to this day still remind me how many times I've taken their alarm clocks apart and had to every week buy a new alarm clock. Um, and so, yeah, it kind of evolved into a no-brainer for me as I kind of grew up and realized that being a technician was my future. So when I came to the United States, I took all the tech classes. I was fortunate enough to have a lot of those tech classes available to me at the high school level. I took the small engines course. I still talk to this day to my instructor from high school, who owned a Volkswagen too. And my background when I went into the industry is on the Volkswagen side. So anytime he had car troubles, he called me up, which is kind of fun to talk to your old educators that taught you the basics, right? Um, and then also, I had the great opportunity of intermediate schools in the state of Minnesota, where on each corner of the metro area, we have these high school programs available where local high school ships their students in and have CTE courses, typically, which are very expensive to run, but having a centralized location. So I took a collision program at that point in high school, which kind of got me the backing of the collision side at the local campus during high school. At that time, it was very hard to employ somebody. And so I tried getting an internship in the collision side and nobody wanted to hire me. I think we still have that conversation, that like threshold of who wants to hire a high school student, right? And logistics behind that. And then the person involved at the high school level of the apprenticeship side of things gave me an option to go on the technical side. Let's try getting you a job as a technical side. And that's where I kind of interviewed at the local Volkswagen dealership and they hired me on. And then I went to the technical side technical school at Century College, the local community college, which I now support as part of my job as director of outreach. So I've come full circle as far as being part of the system, having experienced the programs along the way. And I find myself being very fortunate to have had those opportunities for sure.
Well, and it's such an interesting background, and we'll talk about that industry school relationship here in a little bit, but I do want to ask, was there, like, your dad being a computer programmer, you going into cars, was there a car culture in South Africa that like you had brought over with you, or was this something where as you moved to the United States that it kind of opened your eyes to?
I think it's a lot more society driven, right? In the United States, we're very, you know, if it's broken, throw it away, move on, or call the professional, right? In a different culture, you can't afford to call the specialist. And even if you could, you don't know who to call. So you have to fix it yourself to make it work because that's how we work. So even my dad being on the computer programming side of things, we were the weekend warrior kind of scenario. If the car broke and the alternator didn't charge the battery, we wouldn't just replace the alternator, we would rebuild the alternator. Just different perspective, I think, when it comes to what we're used to in the United States versus some other countries. I think it's definitely that if you cannot fix it yourself, it's probably not worth fixing versus the United States, we're going to throw it away and replace it. And so just that aspect is a much different way of looking at the world.
Yeah. And I have to imagine that's helped you in your career, right? Because you, at a young age, are learning how things work and it sounds like we're very curious as to how things work. And regardless of what it is, especially folks with that really, really good technical aptitude, I feel like have that similar mindset to what you did in terms of just, tearing apart that alarm clock and understanding how it works. Like there's a different level of curiosity that I see with the best of the best, where they do truly want to understand things. And I think ultimately that leads you down a path where you're always kind of curious and you're always interested in how things work. And I see that pattern with a lot of very, very technically talented people.
Yeah, when I knew I was coming on the podcast, and I know you asked kind of the background questions, I started thinking about like my background and some of the hobbies that I had as a kid, and I was very much into model railroads, right? And now looking back at it, I'm like thinking to myself, I was teaching myself Ohm's law, right? DC circuits, because one side of the track is positive, one side is negative. If we don't have a good connection, that's high resistance or open in the circuit. And like applying just those basic toys, it has a practical impact on the greater understanding of how things work too. Like dirty wheels on those, that's high resistance, the motor won't run. And so it is very much of, some of us are kind of born with that, but it does not mean you cannot teach it. I think a lot of individuals we have at the high school level and middle school level right now, they're not getting introduced to these pathways or these concepts of working with our hands, because they don't see mom and dad doing it because they went for a 4-year degree, because that's what the school system was encouraging at the time. Mom and dad doesn't know how to check tire pressure, so we don't know. Our garages as storage units, not being utilized for tinkering anymore. So I think being engulfed in that definitely is a benefit, but I think there's a lot of opportunity as far as the industry standpoints to kind of open that possibility for the next generation to explore that pathway too.
Boy, is that a good point. And I think, if you're a parent that's out there, I do think there are a lot of things like Lew was just talking about, where if you want to get your child to be maybe a little bit more mechanically inclined, there are things still to this day. I don't know if, were you a Lego guy?
Oh, big time. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. Me and
I
my
get
son
that
to this
pattern
day
too.
love Legos. Yeah, absolutely. Got one of the original robotic sets back in the day. And yeah, absolutely. A big part of the tinkering and exploring that. There's some great different things out there, and Legos has evolved so much to this day that they're just kind of really taking over. But there's a lot of other resources too. Another one I just want to shout out. They're not paying me anything for this, but if you guys are looking to engage a younger generation, Upper Story LLC is a company that makes amazing hands-on toys. They have a uh, uh, a game that's called Spintronics that turns electricity into the steampunk gear set. And so you get to learn about electricity and amperage and voltage all by building a circuit with gears and sprockets and chains. And so just taking it to the next level. So I just want to give them a shout out. And they got a really cool marble game too that kind of talks about computers. And my son loves these games. So I kind of encouraged other people. And I always want to make sure to let people know about these awesome resources.
I had never heard of these guys. And as you're talking, I just looked up the site, and that is incredible. They have some cool stuff, and it looks, they're a Twin City company too, right? Like they're based out of Minneapolis area.
Yeah, just phenomenal. I met with one of the co-owners of that, and just a wonderful connection again. And they're doing some great things out in the industry, and it's definitely something we can look at for awareness. We need to kind of plant that seed much earlier, and this is a great way of doing it with a game. So,
wow, I see all kinds of opportunities with stuff like that. I mean, if you're a shop that's out there and maybe you have a good customer that has a kid that's interested, it might be a good idea. Maybe have a few of those on the shelf at your shop and give them to a young kid and see, try to stoke that up. And as we're around the holiday season, I think that's a great gift idea. Just in general, what a cool company. I had no idea they existed. That's awesome. All right. So let's talk about what you're doing in Minnesota and what you do on in your day-to-day life. Tell us a little bit about your job.
Yeah, so I work for Minnesota State Transportation Center of Excellence. It is quite a lengthy title for the kind of benefit of us all. I'll just call it TCOE. That's kind of our shortened version of it. As the TCOE, we kind of fall under the educational branch. We're funded through the Minnesota State College University system, and more specifically, we're in place to promote transportation programs. So we have 6 main sectors that we support, anything from marine power sports to automotive to collision to truck driving to diesel technology to aviation. So it's quite a big task to kind of encompass all of that. We have 3 main pillars that we work under. It's inspiring the future technicians, basically, kind of building that recruitment side of things, getting the pipeline in place. Engaging industry is the other pillar that's very critical in making sure that our industry is connected to our education programs and kind of driving that ship and telling us what we need to do as an educational institution to make sure we meet their standards. Additional to that, and is our enhanced education. So we have to be on the front line of technology and talking about latest greatest things and make sure that we implement it into our educational pathways. A lot of things are changing in our industry on the automotive side, collision side, across the board. So we see a lot more autonomous vehicles driving themselves. We see a lot of ADAS functions, electrification, and so we try to implement some of that educational pathways throughout the system, supporting the whole state. I think altogether right now we're supporting about 73 different programs across the state as the transportation center. So it's a mass undertaking. Our team is composed of 4 individuals, so we got a big task, but we try to hit the ground running. A lot of my time specifically as the director of outreach is spent on the outreach side, inspiring students. The big things we do is Nitro-X camps. It's our middle school camps that we run during the summer for 6th through 8th graders going into 6th through 8th grade middle schoolers, where we explore the transportation industry utilizing RC cars. And it's a phenomenal tool. And once again, we've had some a lot of success stories within that category. We've been running the Nitro-X camps since 2015. We have campers that are now in the industry, successful, working in the collision side, the diesel side, and the automotive side. But each day of those camps are spent tinkering with the RC cars, making sure they're adjusted right, and we're going to jump them and see how we need to adjust the suspension. Then we're going to do some sort of technical hands-on session. We're going to use an impact gun to remove a tire off of the vehicle. And most of these are held at a college campus. We have mentors involved that might be former students of that campus, that program. We also try to involve the local high school. If they have a small engines course or a automotive program at the high school level, we try to incorporate them into the camps too. Once again, having a familiar face for a middle schooler to connect with at the high school level, we're kind of laying that pathway all the way to college and then to industry. Each day we take an industry tour, which is amazing. Once again, industry loves this. They open the doors and they allow us to go behind the doors, behind the closed doors into the shop, and have the student, the camper, experience what that looks like. One of the days is spent at a collision shop where the student gets to design and paint their own RC car body. They get to take home at the end of the week after race day. And that's just another wonderful experience. We've had great partners in making this happen. 3M being a big Minnesota company, they really stepped forward. PPG being another massive paint company that stepped forward and donates the paint, and then also the physical labor of the paint booths. And so it has been a great program, and always looking for more industry representatives to support that. So we'll kind of leave some notes along the way if you guys want to check it out. I know 2024 we did a big showcase of our Nitro-X camps at the ASE conference. So we had 46. Yeah, it was a hit. It was a great time. A lot of work that went into that event. I personally painted 46 sponsored vehicles. I think WrenchWay was one of those vehicles. So a lot of work involved, but I think it was a great hit to showcase what Nitro-X is all about.
Well, and so I would, anybody that's listening to this, highly encourage that you go check that out, because it is such a cool program. I know so many people in the industry that I've talked to struggle with how do we relate to a young person, especially at that middle school level, because if you go in and you're talking about salary and you're talking about what we're used to talking about as an industry, they don't care at that age, right? Like
glazed over eyes and showing up, right?
Right. Yeah. And it's hard to relate to that young person when you're so used to talking to other industry members, or even like a high schooler, right? There's a big gap there. And so what you've done is you've been able to pique interest at an early age that this can be a really cool profession, but you're almost just laying a seed that you can then kind of water and grow throughout their school experience, right? So when I say to go check it out, the cars are cool, the layout is cool. Getting to talk with industry members without, I think we all remember being middle schoolers, like it's an awkward age. So like being, kind of in that awkward stage, but being around adults that are trying to teach you in a way that isn't, you don't have them under a car on a hoist. Like you have them doing something that, heck, they could probably go home and do too, right? Like if they get an RC car for Christmas or they get an RC car for their birthday, like being able to tinker similar to what you did growing up, it gives them firsthand exposure to using their hands. And that is such a critical thing where we're at as an industry right now.
Absolutely. The biggest thing I always say, and I'll know that like a lot of people will say, "Oh, Lou's saying this again," kind of scenario, is there's no substitution for experience. I think having been on the educator side of things, uh, and you have somebody walk in on day one, and you have to explain to them which side of the screwdriver to use, that's a big steep curve that we need to overcome right from day one. And industry is expecting somebody that's going to be proficient in 2 years, if not quicker, to be able to be self-maintained, right? And so being able to plant the seed much earlier, not only tinkering, but also using tools, identifying tools. What's the benefits of this, X, Y, and Z? I think there's no substitution for experience. And this is a prime example of getting that ball rolling much sooner. So when we do get to a high school level, the college level, the industry level, we have a product that is above standards already when we're talking about the individual being a technician.
Want to build a pipeline of young technician talent in your shop? Check out School Assist. Powered by WrenchWay and ASE, School Assist makes it easy for shops and dealerships who are looking for young technician talent to build relationships with instructors and their students. Schools post specific requests for things like equipment, tools, advisory committee members, shop visits, and more. Shops can view these requests and directly connect with program instructors all in one place. Over 2,800 schools and 2,000 shops are already using School Assist to build valuable connections. See if it's right for your shop. Learn more at wrenchway.com/school-assist. Link is in the show notes. And one of the things as you're talking through this that I see as a huge benefit is there are high school programs out there that are struggling to reach the right student, right? And whether, I don't know in Minnesota if it's as much block scheduling as it is here in Wisconsin, but that's created some challenges in getting the right kids into the right classes, because if it's an elective class, they're just signing up for whatever elective classes they can get into. That's created this scenario where maybe we've had challenges getting that right student in. So I don't know from a school standpoint how we deal with that, but if you're piquing curiosity at an earlier age, being able to make sure that we can get that student into the right path going forward, I hope we're able to work some of that out so that, I've talked to a lot of teachers over the years that, like, man, we have a line of kids that want to be in this program, but we can't get them in because everybody else that has taken the elective. Hopefully we're making headway there, but what an opportunity to fill these seats with kids that are mechanically inclined, and that, you've run this fabulous program that is an introduction to kind of get them to step up rather than just expecting them. A lot of cases, it might end up being that you're wondering why you can't get people in that automotive class at a high school level. Like, there's no real ramp up to it. This offer is just an extremely good opportunity for that.
Absolutely. There's some great ways of engaging. And I think it has to be a partnership too. I think it's not all due to just a high school program per se, right? I think it has to be industry driven too. there's a great article, and I will share this in our the notes too, published by Roundhouse Partnership Solutions, that talks about investing in the future workforce. And they did a study to where they mentioned engaging from the industry side at the middle school level. You get a 300% increase of interest at the middle school level if you compared to if you didn't engage as an industry. That's a massive amount of change,
Oh,
and it's a low hanging fruit if you look at that. If you can be an industry, and the problem we deal with a lot on our industry side is we are very reactive. Having been a part of the industry, having worked as a technician, this week we're slow, next week we're laying off, not thinking about the week after, right? Engaging at the middle school level is not immediate return of investment. And we kind of talk about this all the time when we're talking about Nitro-X. You're not going to hire that middle schooler to replace a transmission next week. And we understand that. But the reality is we have to create these pipelines along with our educational partners to have the complete pipeline from introduction at the middle school level to introduce them to the high school programs if it's available. Hopefully we kind of increase those programs across the state and also fix what you were just talking about. Gets me so frustrated when I go to these advisory committee meetings across the state, especially at the high school level, and they tell me they have 300 plus students a week that they interact with. And I'm thinking, how are you getting anything done working with 300 students at 1 hour increments? By the time you get the tools out to fix something or do something, you have to clean up and get out. So, not to mention the seats being taken up by people that might not be as driven or interested in that topic. And so just kind of looking at the big picture so we can be more proactive as an industry. And you've had some great guests on in the past that's starting to get that idea of like, hey, what if we did grow this whole package deal, this whole pipeline, right? And that makes a real difference in the bigger scale of things, and just kind of getting out of the old rut of being very not so proactive. So kind of that's a big poke at the industry a little bit. I'm sorry about that, but I think it has to be said.
I think you and I are very much on the same wavelength there, right? Where somehow we've got to get our industry to take a step back and look at this through a more holistic view, look at it from a standpoint of, if we've had these issues now for several decades, you'd think that maybe we would want to shift and not look at just this month's P&L, or like you said, week to week, we're slow, we're busy, and you're adjusting your staff according to that. How do you think you get industry to maybe take a step back there and say, you know what, we do need to look at this differently. We do need to look at this from a long-term sustainable path. And, I'll say, when I say that, I point to myself first and foremost as one of the guilty parties in this entire thing, because when we had first started our company, it was based around recruiting, and it was more of a temporary solution, what I would call it, where you're trying to plug that hole because you're so busy and you're needing techs right now. And it took some time for us to learn this of, if you just keep doing this for the health of the industry, you're not helping anybody, right? Like, you might help that one shop's immediate need. But when we look at this from an industry-wide perspective, the more we can get industry as a whole to kind of buy into, we need to look at this future of this industry, and we need to kind of set a healthy path for what this looks like in the future. It takes top-down leadership from a dealership, from an independent shop, from a fleet, whoever it is that's out there, to say, okay, I'm sick of chasing my tail on this. We're going to take a different approach to this. And it might not be an immediate ROI type of thing, where it's going to take some time to develop that next generation. And you look at a program like Nitro-X, if you make small investments right now, I guarantee 10 years from now is going to look a lot different for you than if you just kind of continue to ignore the future and not try to build a sustainable path. And even for those shops that are out there, I've talked to them before where they're like, I don't know, I've only got 5 years left and I'm going to retire. Like, okay, so if you own the business, for example, it would be far more enticing to me to buy your business if you had a sustainable pipeline of people coming in. I think anybody that's coming into this industry or wants to get into an ownership role or a dealer principal role, you don't want to have to fight this for the rest of your career. So if you lay out that foundation ahead of time, hey, we've got this nice pipeline where we've worked it out to where we do pay attention to the middle schoolers, and then we are trying to work with the high school to make sure that their seats are full of people that want to be in our industry. And then from there, we're working with the tech schools to try and get those high schoolers into a good program. To me, that's just such a more sustainable system than constantly trying to steal tech from your neighbor.
Yeah, and once again, we're just talking about one leg of this technician shortage, right?
Yeah.
There's no golden bullet that will take care of everything all at once. We're just talking about the pipeline, but there's can be several different conversations about flat rate hours, tools cost, and being able to roll that into like being given to a technician. The salary, that's a big topic that's been kind of a big one with a lot of the more recent comments being made from some CEOs around the country here. I think we got to look at it just through a different lens. And once again, expecting the same a change with changing nothing, you're going to have the same results. And that's just called insanity at this point.
Yeah, the definition of insanity is literally that.
Expecting something different. The reality is we need to change things up and we need to work together towards a solution. And I think just being dialed in at a advisory committee meeting, either at the high school level or college level, is a great starting point. And being there every time, once again, being that reactiveness of, hey, we don't need any technicians, so I don't see a need to come to this fall's advisory committee meeting, right? I think we see that way too often where it's not a continuous support. It's more of what's in it for me compared to how can I really be a part of this program and support it and really be to the next level, right? So, I think we have to change, and that's the biggest thing. Start small steps in the right direction. If you recognize that you're an industry individual and you have a need of needing to engage, just go knock on the door at your local college or local high school and see how you can be a better part of that program.
Yeah, and I think for the most part, schools are going to have open ears to whatever suggestions you have, right? That they, whether we see it a lot on the WrenchWay side, I'm sure you do too. Some of the funding challenges that the high schools have and the amount of programs that are at risk of just not being programs anymore. And I think for us, I feel like our responsibility as an industry is to make sure those programs don't go away. Like you cannot have them go away. We're at such a shortage already. If we're at risk of losing programs, or maybe you're at risk of, we talk a lot about instructors too, where maybe they have this kind of guarded approach to industry coming in because they don't want to adapt and they don't want to change it. And maybe it's that instructor that's only got a couple of years left, right? Where, hey, I've been running this program the way I like it. I want to ride it out to retirement. We've got a situation similar to that with the school where the instructor knows they're going to be retiring. And as George Arentz from ASC puts it, there are a lot of instructors that retired 5 years ago and forgot to tell anybody. So like they're, and that's not every instructor, don't get me wrong, right? Like we have so many great instructors that have had, like you talked about with your former instructor, where they encouraged you to kind of keep going down this path. And so for me, it's about highlighting those ones that are doing a great job and maybe pushing those ones that are trying to settle in and push them out of their comfort zone a little bit, as bad as that sounds, just to say, it's not about you, the instructor. It's about these kids. It's about the students, and what can we do to better influence their lives. And there's just so much to unpack there, right? Because there are so many different scenarios. One thing I was going to ask you about that I'm guessing is unique, not unique to Minnesota, because we have it in Wisconsin. I'm sure a lot of other states do as well. The differences between, I want to just ask your opinion on this. The differences between a school, say in the metro area of the Twin Cities, versus a small community that, like where I live at now, I moved back to my hometown of 2,500 people. We don't have an automotive program, but we still have a lot of kids in those programs that want to be in automotive or diesel or, working on ag equipment. The variance of schools that you see when you're going out, that can pose a whole different set of challenges, right? Because it's just you have polar opposites of schools.
Absolutely. When I'm traveling the state, the other thing I do across the state is do these EV and ADAS 101 presentations across the state, and the reception of those programs, especially the electric vehicle, is much different. Received much differently compared to the metro area versus the rest of the state. So it's been a challenge, and for sure. And what we do see at once again, just the topic of educators, I think a program is not the building, it's not the equipment, it is the individual that runs that program. And the greatest power is that individual that has the drive for the students. We are not preparing a student for tomorrow, we're preparing them for the next 30 years, right? And being able to realize that and kind of look at our curriculum and say, what's the odds that my student is going to deal with a carburetor this week or the next 30 years, right? And recognizing maybe I should be talking about something different like ADAS, or how do I incorporate that? And I think we do have a lot of that across the state, but we also have some amazing, phenomenal instructors too. And so I do want to recognize those folks across the state, making a difference, making a big impact. And we do a recognition awards dinner once a year up at our annual conference up at MTTIA, Midwest Teachers of Transportation Industrial Areas.
A lot of acronyms today.
Yeah, ask me how long I took to remember that one. But that's up in Brainerd, Minnesota, first week of August, where we just get together as educators from the automotive, collision, and diesel side. And we have PD. So we have a bunch of presenters, but we do a awards dinner to recognize those individuals that are changing the industry and making an impact that way. So I just kind of wanted to kind of recognize the people. Yes,
Absolutely.
There are still going to be people. And the rural communities that do have programs, we find that those individuals are having a hard time retiring. And I've seen it more than once because they have built a legacy, they've built a program, and there's nobody to take the place. And they don't want to let that go just because of the things you talked about before. If that individual leaves that space, there's no guarantee that that program will exist. And that's a hard thing we have to deal with as an industry too, because our educators do not get paid what our technicians get paid. And being able to do that switch, I know when I made the switch from being a master Volkswagen technician to go back into the classroom to teach, which I never thought that would be a thing when I went through tech school. But I took a decent pay cut, $40,000, $60,000 pay cut a year to do that switch. And that's something else we have to look at as an industry and kind of recognize the people that's teaching the next generation need to be properly compensated. And at the TCOE, we're working at kind of equalizing that too across the state too. So,
you're getting me fired up there, because that you're absolutely right. And I think this should be more of a concern for our industry than it actually is, right? And the shortage of teachers that we're seeing is really concerning because, and I've said it a million times, but we see a common theme where that legacy teacher retires, and oftentimes, especially in a small town, that person's a legend, right? Like they've
Mhm.
set this path for themselves, and almost unless they recruit one of their former students to come back and teach, it's really hard to find somebody to come in. And you know, what we've seen is that when that teacher retires, then the interest in that program, because you have this legend that steps down, the interest in that program falls off, and then it just becomes a really expensive program that nobody's interested in. And it's, from a administration standpoint, probably a pretty easy cut at that point, right? Because why are we paying all this money for this program that nobody's interested in? And why are we going to go try to find another teacher when we know what a struggle it is to find these teachers? And I think that's a huge, huge issue with our industry. And you talked about the pay side, and I have to apologize because we failed to talk about your history as a technician and a teacher as well. And
Yeah,
like as we were kind of going into it, we dove right into the meat and potatoes of things. But you've got such a broad background in our industry in different aspects of it, to where you bring a lot of knowledge through all of these lenses, right? And that teacher side and the compensation side, how do you fix that? Like, these schools are already so hamstrung by budgets that now we're saying, okay, we need you to double a teacher's salary. Like, how do you even go about that?
that that is a great question. If I had a crystal ball and answered that question, I can make a lot of money on that. But
Yeah,
I think the bigger step up would be industry stepping forward, right? How can we maintain these programs but do like a crowdsourcing similar to how many dealerships do we have in town? How can we supplement a partial salary for this local shop, especially if we're talking outside the metro area, we have to work with the big entities in our environment, the dealer association, whatever that looks like. The final entity that benefits from these programs existing, they have to step forward. And I think that's a um, big ask, but also, once again, the return on investment has to be there for them. And that program going away, it's going to have a direct effect on their operations daily, right? Because where's that pipeline if that program doesn't exist at the high school
scary.
level? Yeah,
It, it's scary. And I agree. Somehow we've got to come up with some type of system to make sure that these teachers are taken care of. And I think it's important to find the right teachers as well, right? Like, I think that being
100%.
able to, you know, get them the education they need to stay up with the technology, even truly, like, I'm kind of a little off topic, but on topic. But like, when you talk about advisory committee meetings, you've been to a million of them. Like, I've had conversations with high schools before where, they're talking about advanced diagnostics classes. And I'm like, can we take a step back and make sure that they know what a screwdriver is? Like,
Yeah.
it is like, I think it's so challenging. My wife's a teacher. And so we see it as, she's an elementary school teacher. You see the different skill sets and the variance. That's very challenging for a teacher, because you might have somebody that is close to being able to do like you were when you were a kid. You tore into a lot of stuff, really maybe understood basic electricity, like you could go to that next step. But in that same class, you might have somebody coming in that has no background. And so from a teacher's perspective, the challenges of being able to reach each kid and bring them a ton of value is, it's a challenge.
Absolutely. And I would 100% agree. To having been on the educator side of things, I've dealt with that personally, right? Every class you get is completely different. So even the first year teaching compared to the second year is completely a new environment, a new group of students, and a new set of challenges. Um, the big thing I hear across the state at every advisory committee meeting from industry is make sure we cover the basics.
Yep.
Everything else beyond the basics, we can build on that, but they have to have this core foundation of basics. The Ohm's law, the understanding of tools and how to utilize them and name them correctly. It's the core fundamentals. A visual inspection of a vehicle, being able to properly do that, lifting a vehicle safely. Yes, if we do get a little ambitious on a high school level, we do have to kind of look through the lens and say, do we have enough individuals coming through the program that are at that level? Is it worth offering that level of a course? But I think the advisory committee meeting will still have to steer it back to the basics. I think having a baseline at the high school level, moving to a college level or into industry is way more valuable than having a student that has gone through a advanced diagnostic course, not understanding how electricity flows. So yeah.
So many things there.
The
Well, and as we're talking through this, I'm thinking like it also takes industry managing expectations of what that entry level student is capable of when they come into your shop. The other challenge from a teacher standpoint is, yes, it's easy to say, how many individuals do you have that are that this program would be useful for, but then knowing like every year you're getting a different round of individuals coming in. And so that mix every single year is going to be different in terms of what your students' capabilities are.
Absolutely. It's always a mixed bag. Never know what you're going to get.
For you, seeing both sides of the industry, the education and the shop side, how do you think, what's an effective way for a school to communicate with shops like in an advisory committee meeting, right? Because I think one of my concerns with advisory committee meetings as a whole is they become a check the box type of thing where you're it's Groundhog Day. You go back and every single time it's the same exact conversation. And, when you look at it, what have you seen from advisory committee meetings that are effective?
I think being composed of a wide variety of individuals. I mean, the mom pop shops, the main name brand dealerships, those are typically way more successful. And also having action items. I think a lot of these advisory committee meetings, the meetings themselves are phenomenal. We're having great conversations. We're coming to the same conclusions that X, Y, and Z needs to happen. But the action items need to be deliberately laid out, be very specific. And from the educator side to the industry side, there is going to be an ask, but also from the industry side to the educational side, there should be an ask also. It is a combined effort in creating a better program. I think the ones that I see being successful has a very well laid out plan of these are the action items. When we leave today's meeting, we're going to follow up with X, Y, and Z. Just kind of laying it out there, kind of seeing what that looks like. Because, yeah, talking about it and recognizing issues is one thing, but action plans do a lot more, right? So just kind of having that follow through plan and it well laid out, saying that X, Y, and Z, this industry partner is going to do this, or come into the classroom and commit to something during those meetings, has a much better impact compared to just checking the boxes every time we have our meetings.
That is such a good point. And I think one thing, the education side, especially more so on the tech school side, right, that I think you could do to get on the same page as your advisory committee members a little bit more is maybe simplifying some of those KPIs or those report backs, because a lot of times you'll get a report as an industry member, you'll get a report of like the advanced metrics that they're being judged on by the state, and 100%, right? Like, because you're reading through this entire list. I know I was just at one a few weeks ago where I'm like, okay, this is great, but what is this actually telling me? It tells me that you're doing everything to get to the state's, to what they're asking of you. But how do we maybe simplify a dashboard of some type to say, okay, for me as an industry member, what's your, the key factors that matter to me: what's your capacity of your classroom? How many students do you have in it? Is curriculum hitting on point? And how do we know if it's hitting on point? And maybe looking at the overall satisfaction of that school, right? And to me, those reports say a lot of that. It's just how do you pull that out of it so that you're able to simplify it in a message to your advisory committee that it truly has an impact.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big one. I've gone to advisory committee meetings where there's more people from the institution than there is from industry, and each one of them gets to share something about the institution, and then like at the end of the day, we're like,
What happened?
spend an hour and a half talking about the institution baselines and what we're doing internally, and a lot of it is over the head. We really need to boil it back to the focus point of we're creating technicians for industry, so we need to prepare them for industry and getting those direct feedbacks. And yes, butts and seats are important. We need to pay for the lights to be on as an institution. So those are some metrics that we need to, but that might be a pre-email information. Take a look at this, and we boil it down and kind of present it at the meeting in a more consumable way of exactly what those figures meant. But yes, I would totally agree with it. There's plenty of those meetings that you're sitting there like, okay, when are we getting to the meat and potatoes here, right?
I I think a lot of them that I've been to that have been the best ones have been very conversational. Like they've been very, um, open-ended in conversation, so that it's not just industry sitting there listening to all of this. It is, what do you guys need? What do we need? Let's have these conversations so something productive comes out of it, rather than just checking the box, for state funding or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like it's those are just more enjoyable to sit through too, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And I have the great benefit of seeing a lot of different campuses, a lot of different programs, high school and college, not only automotive, diesel, and collision too. So I kind of experienced a little bit of it all. And then so I have a little bit of background where I come into, and this program is experiencing X, Y, and Z problems. And I can kind of say, hey, over here, they did this. And what do you guys think of that? And that is exactly what this is meant for. And our participation as the TCOE at these meetings, we have some background, we have some knowledge at the different location. But not only that, the deeper conversations of, I always kind of throw out at the end of the day, hey, do you guys have a wish list as a institution? Your School Connect does a great job of that. But why aren't we mentioning it during our advisory committee meeting? Our industry partners are here. What is the things that would really benefit your program? It might be on a high school level, it is just supplies. Do you have some brake clean that you can send our way, because we don't have a budget for that? Do you have a barrel of oil you're willing to send our way? So I always encourage kind of like, hey, do you have an ask as a institution, as a program, while your industry partners are in the room? Because this is the time to kind of spread that information, let that out.
You had talked about some of the trainings that you're doing around EV and ADAS. Yeah. Can you give us a little background on that? Because I do want to take a little bit of time to talk about that. I think what you're doing there is incredible, and we need to make sure we're shining a light on that as well.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Yeah. When I stepped into this role, this has been 2.5 years ago. We kind of started talking about how do we get our instructors on board as far as latest, greatest technology. And the big ones everybody's talking about, and we're kind of sick and tired of hearing about it, but it must be mentioned, is this idea of electrification and ADAS. And so with my technical background, my certification in ASE and Volkswagen Master Tech, I was able to create 2 different presentations. One is EV 101, basically talking about introducing electric vehicles to either a high school classroom, a college classroom, or train the trainer for educators. And we will talk about all the different types of XEVs, the different safety protocols that go around those XEVs, the different components found on these electric vehicles, and what their functions are. And then I have a hands-on, let's de-energize. So I drive around a 2022 RAV4 Prime, which is the plug-in hybrid. And so we'll talk about how do we de-energize the system? How do we do a live test? How do we test our gloves? And it's an awesome experience because a lot of our educators, they've been out of the industry long enough to where this is a whole new realm. And so after I complete some of these presentations, I leave my resource. I leave my presentation. I leave everything that I created this presentation with the educator. So they're hopefully, and I recommend a tool list and everything with links so they can create their own curriculum around it. It's a great way to engage and introduce the topics. So the students, the educator can take that. Same thing on the ADAS side. I just did an ADAS presentation yesterday at my old stomping grounds, my own college that I graduated from, which was kind of fun. So I went in there and did a presentation and talking about the different types of ADAS systems found on today's vehicles. I have a little video clip of me experiencing a Waymo out in Phoenix, Arizona. And then we kind of talk about how would we tell a car to drive itself, right? And the concepts of that. How do we control the steering? How do we control the brakes? This all applies to our ADAS functions. So we talk about passive system, active systems, sometimes fixing customers versus vehicles. That's important too, right? If they buy a used vehicle and their friend has the same vehicle and it performs slightly different, we might have to fix a customer if they have a passive system versus an active system. We talk about the static calibration versus dynamic, and then we go out in the lab and we do a front radar calibration in the lab, and we talk about factory scan tools, factory targets, and the possibility of this new segment we see in our industry. It doesn't fall 100% on the service side. It doesn't fall 100% on collision. So it's this new opportunity for technicians to kind of investigate with. So yeah, we do these presentations. It's free of charge to anybody in Minnesota. Tomorrow, I'm actually partnering with ASC, our local field rep, Dean Jocelyn. He organized a local Ford dealership to have me come in, and he invited all the high school instructors from the metro area. And we'll do an EV 101 presentation and have them de-energize the high voltage system. And the dealership, the Ford dealership, kind of said if we can take some cars for a test drive too. So it's pretty exciting. I partnered with a lot of industry partners. I just had Rivian out at one of our other presentations. They came and showcased their mobile service vehicle. Pretty cool. I've had Volkswagen come out a few times too. So it's a great partnership in connecting individuals and introducing those latest, greatest technology. And the feedback has been just phenomenal across the board. And we hope to keep on building the latest, greatest technology presentations across the state too.
We could do a whole podcast on just the responsibility of ADAS between repair and collision, because I think there's still a lot of misunderstanding there and not truly knowing who owns this. And like you said, maybe that space in between is another opportunity. But I do think at some point we need to have a roundtable on that and talk through it, because I think there's some confusion yet, even from the collision side on what is the repair side's responsibility here. So I always ask questions about that, and so we'll have to have you back on to talk through some of that stuff at some point as well. The last thing as we conclude the podcast, I've got some fun questions for you that are kind of off topic and hopefully fun in general. But the first question is, if you weren't doing this, what would you be doing?
Oh boy. I would have never even seen myself in this seat today. You never know where life is going to take you. I knew this question was coming, and I had a really hard time coming up with an answer. Just like if you're a young kid, you kind of think, oh, when I was a young kid, I wanted to be a train conductor, right? But that has changed since. If money was no object, this is a weird one, Jay, I apologize, but I would own a coffee shop.
That is off. That is not one that I would have expected out of you.
The record, like completely in the left field. I totally understand that. But some of my first jobs was as a barista in a mom pop coffee shop environment. And it's such a simple and such a rewarding daily process of bringing happiness in a cup of coffee to somebody. And I know that is weird. And I kind of just wanted to throw that out there.
I love it.
That is. Yeah, that's just a different way of looking at things.
As you talk about it, I've got an empty cup right now. Like it would sound great. That's a great answer. What a cool answer. Next one is, what was your first job?
Oh, well, that kind of leads up to that.
Yeah, it's your nice segue. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I always did like the lawn mowing thing, but the actual W-2 job was at a small cafe, Don's Cafe, where we served cheesecake and made coffee for people and brought them happiness in that way. So
cheesecake, I've never eaten cheesecake and not been happy afterwards. So
exactly. How can you go wrong? And I can't tell you how many cheesecake we got to take home at the end of the day too. So that would be dangerous. That job too. So.
That would be dangerous. Last question is, what time do you get up in the morning?
Ooh. So the other part of my job is getting this big trailer around. We got a career exploration trailer. So it really depends on that schedule. So we go to high school events and we got a bunch of hands-on activities on a trailer that we go. If I need to go up north somewhere in Hibbing, I need to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning and get on the road. But typically around 5:30 most days, just to get my day rolling. Most of my day is spent traveling somewhere in the States. So a lot of times I need to improvise a little bit.
That is so great. Such great answers and such a great guest. I really, really enjoyed this conversation. I, again, apologize because we didn't really get to dive into the technical side of early on in your career and what a great technician you were and a great educator you've been. I think we'll have to dive into that maybe a little bit more too at some point. But thank you for all the work that you're doing in the state of Minnesota, and even as that's translated. One thing I left out was we do Nitro-X in Wisconsin because of Minnesota, right? Minnesota was kind enough, I think, to kind of hand that thing over to us as well. And so really, really impactful things that you're doing for that next generation of technician. You're doing some phenomenal work, and it is work, right? There's a lot that goes into that. So just appreciate everything that you're doing. Appreciate you coming on the podcast, and hope to do it again.
Thank you so much. And once again, the same to you and your organization and everything you're doing, putting a spotlight on our industry and hoping for change. So amazing job. Thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate it, Lew. That wraps up another episode of Beyond the Wrench. If you liked this episode, please show your support by rating and following the podcast. You can also watch the video interviews on WrenchWay's YouTube channel. Speaking of WrenchWay, did you know Beyond the Wrench is managed and produced by the WrenchWay team? WrenchWay is an online community dedicated to promoting and improving automotive and diesel careers. We help technicians find the best shops to work at, and we also help auto, diesel, and CTE instructors get more support from local industry. You can learn more by visiting WrenchWay.com.